Hi everyone, my name is Athalie Phau. I'm a clinical psychologist, registrar at Cassidy Psychology in Mount Pleasant and in Canning Vale. And so as some of you who may have been following our series over the past month, we've been talking a little bit about death and about dying. And this is not a very common topic that most people like to talk about, and it's often difficult to talk about as well. But death is a part of the life cycle. Everybody dies eventually, and discussing about death can be very difficult as we tend to avoid talking about things that are upsetting and we can feel uncomfortable when we don't have all the answers. And so today I'll just be talking a little bit about how we can talk about death and about dying with children. Talking about what death and life is an important part of life and can be a part of our day-to-day conversations with children as well. And you may have noticed that children tend to be extremely curious when they first discover death, particularly dead flowers, birds, trees, and insects, during a morning walk or when they're walking by a river. This may open up windows of opportunity to discuss death further and to answer all the detailed questions that may arise in our conversations with them. So we want to try to reinforce the concept that actually all living things eventually die, but it does make room for new things to join us on Earth. A marvelous book titled Beginnings and Endings with Lifetimes in Between is one that you can read together with your child to kickstart this process. A child may also have many questions about death and dying. How did they die? Will you die? Will I die? What happens after somebody dies? And oftentimes, confusion, worry, anxiety, fear, sadness are very normal emotions that might come up in these conversations. But that's how children try to make sense of life and death and what happens after. So being honest and open about what might happen or what has happened, and share information in small bits at a time in a very sensitive manner can actually help children better understand and be more accepting of what death is and what has happened. We can also get some indications by the types of questions that a child is asking. So offering detailed or graphic information about how someone died or what happens to a dead body after someone has passed on is probably going to cause unnecessary worry and fear, especially in young children. For some children, the idea that someone watches over us after they have passed can be reassuring and comforting, but it can also be a source of confusion or distress for others. And if someone has indeed passed on, children will respond to the concept of death and dying and the loss of a loved one in very different ways. And there is no wrong or right way to grieve. Some children may experience sadness, some anger, some confusion, and all these are normal and natural emotions that are just a part of life. And so we want to be prepared for a variety of emotions that may come up, and we want to be open and accepting of all these emotions. We may notice that some kids cry, while others may seem to not react at all, and that's okay. Simply staying with your child to offer hugs or reassurances, perhaps answering any questions that they may have, or just being together for a few moments is actually a really supportive way of helping them cope with grief and with loss. And it's also okay if we ourselves feel unsettled or lost or sad after a passing of somebody that we love. And it's okay to share these experiences with our children. So we may choose to explain our feelings to them. For instance, I'm crying because Grandpa has died and I'll never see him again. Can actually help our child to understand our feelings and their feelings as well. And if this is happening for you at this moment, I'll encourage you to engage in support networks, be it friends, family, psychologists or work colleagues, to better support yourself through difficult times. You may wish to check out the book reviews that my colleague Carrie Stewart, a clinical psychologist at Cassidy Psychology, have written for several books that are tailored to children that talks about death and dying. And these books are wonderful ways to kickstart the process about having these difficult conversations with them. And so if you have any questions about any of the material that I've spoken about today, or if you're concerned for yourself or for a child that you know of, please feel free to give us a call at 6381 and my colleagues and myself would be happy to have a chat with you a little bit further. And I look forward to seeing you next time.